the compassionate, the merciful. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace, blessings, and mercy of Allah be with you all. Hello and welcome to this week's Open Dialogue. A lady so great, the moon she had raised. If heaven lies under the feet of a mother, how high must it be under the feet of the mother of Abbas, Lady Ummul-Banin, the mother of sons? Yes, dear viewers, today is the 13th of Jamadul Akhir of the Islamic calendar, and this date marks the death anniversary of a lady nicknamed Ummul-Banin, the mother of son. Her real name was Fatima, daughter of Hizam al-Kilabiyya, and as I explained, she was the mother of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, the father of virtues, and she was the second wife of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. She was an iconic personality in the Islamic history. We must understand her personality and draw lessons from the different aspects of her life because she was an exemplary woman and we can learn a lot from her life. To discuss the different aspects of her life, we are joined by two esteemed guests tonight. We have with us Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin, Syed Mohammad Razavi, who is the head of the Religious Advisory Board at the Shia Islamic Education Society in London, where his work involves responding and resolving family disputes on a daily basis according to the Islamic law. We are also joined by Sister Tashi Zaidi. Sister Tashi is a mother, she is a teacher, she is a Hausa student, and she has her qualification. She has a degree in mathematics and has MBA in finance. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to you, Syed, and condolences on this occasion.
Wa alaikum salam and condolences to everyone, and especially Imam Mahdi Ajalullah Ta'ala Faraju, the Imam of the age.
And assalamu alaikum, Sister Tashi. I appreciate it's early morning hours at your end. Thank you so much for taking time out and joining us for tonight's discussion.
Walaikum assalam. Sister Zainab, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And
I will start with you, Sister Tashi. Tell us about the life of this lady, starting from the time when Lady Fatima Zahra alayha salam had passed away, and what events happened thereafter that brought this lady into the life of Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam.
after the passing away of Hazrat Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayha, some scholars believe that Imam alayhi salam married Umama, baby Umama, who was in the will. The Fatima Zahra had written that he marry her because she took care of her children. She liked her. She was very fond of her children. So we believe that Bibi Ummul-Banin was the third wife of Imam Ali. Maybe that's what I've read. And so Imam Ali alayhi salam set a trend by actually he asked Hazrat Aqeel, his brother, to find a family which was known for its bravery and magnanimity, because he wanted a son who would come and who would help Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And so he asked Imam Hazrat Aqeel alayhi salam, and Hazrat Aqeel alayhi salam, we believe that he was a expert in genealogy and he knew a lot about the traits of the Arab tribes, and he suggested the family of maybe Ummul-Banin, who was Fatima ibn Hazam al-Kalbiya, like you mentioned. Al-Kalbiya, it was a tribe of al-Kilabi, and it was known for its bravery, valor, and its magnanimity, its generosity, its nobility. And so because of those traits, Imam alayhi salam, Hazrat Aqeel suggested this family, and Imam alayhi salam agreed. And Hazrat Aqeel went over there to that tribe with the proposal. He went to Hazrat Hazam, who was the father of Bibi Ummul-Banin. Ummul-Banin was the title given to her later on. Actually, her name was Fatima at that time, and he presented the proposal. If you want to know spend some time on the story. The tribe was known for its generosity. So Hazrat Aqeel, whenever they would get a guest, they would uh, host them for 3 days before asking them the business. And so Hazrat Aqeel spent 3 days over there, and they hosted him, and then they asked him his business, and then he mentioned that he had brought the proposal of Imam Ali, and we've all read that the father of Hazrat Fatima binte Hazam, he was extremely happy, and he bowed down in gratefulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he knew the status of Imam alayhi salam. So that gives us an idea about the marifat, that they had an idea about Imam alayhi salam, his status, and his stature in Islam. But then he also said that I need to ask my wife and my daughter. So that shows that
Sister
that
Tashi,
family
I'm
had.
going to come back to you. I'm going to come
Yes.
back to you regarding the proposal. These are very important points you're making. But in the answer to the first question, I think you raised a very important point that I would like the Sayyid to come in here on. Is you said that Imam Ali alayhi salam, the commander of the faithful, the gate of the city of knowledge, the personality, the divine leader after the holy messenger of God, who had ilmul ghaib, who had the knowledge of the unseen, and he was the gate to the city of knowledge. Why did he, Sayyid, go to his brother Aqeel in order to ask whilst looking for a proposal? What is the wisdom behind this of the commander of the faithful?
Yeah, yes, this question quite often comes, that why Imam Ali, who had the knowledge of everything, had to ask his brother Aqeel. Uh, we all believe that Imams do have knowledge, Imams do have awareness of what is going to happen, as Imam Hussain was aware of his shahadat, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam was aware of his shahadat. He even woke Ibn Muljam up and asked him to pray and do the. I mean, with the knowledge they had, they could have easily escaped and not gone for the shahadat. But that shows that they were supposed to live a normal human being's life. In which people seek each other's advice and deal with the things according to the norms of the society and life. Uh, this could be said regarding Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. I mean, in one of the battles, especially Jange Khandaq, Prophet Muhammad asks advice of everyone, and Salman Farsi says that in our country people dig trenches, and then this is how the battle is fought. So he took the advice of Salman Farsi. Prophet knew everything. He could have done it himself without telling, but he wanted people to come forward with their ideas, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam listened to them and paid attention, and people were unanimous on uh, this. They went forward for it. So similar thing could be said regarding Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Yes, Imam Ali was aware of who could be the best person. And as Sister was mentioning, according to narrations, although what is commonly known is that she is the second wife immediately after Fatima Zahra salawatullah alayha. But that is not the truth. She could be second. She is third or fourth wife. There are two other names. In some cases, two other names are mentioned before her, and there is no doubt that her name was Fatima as well. And according to one narration, she requested Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, after being married to him, not to call her Fatima because it might hurt the feeling of the kids. I mean, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain, Bibi Zainab, and Kulthum, they might remember their mother. And while she was married to Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi salatu wasalam, she played the excellent role of mother for the children. And according to one narration, once Ummul-Banin found Bibi Zainab sitting in a corner and staring at a corner of the room, And she said, "Why you are looking?" He said, "My mother used to sit in that corner and brush my hair, and I'm remembering her." So she went forward and hugged her and kissed her, and gave her the motherly love that she could have given. So the reason why we say that she's not the second wife, I mean, the immediate wife after after Bibi Fatima Zahra salawatullah alayha, is that Hazrat Abbas was born at least 12 years after Shahadat of Fatima Zahra salawatullah alayha. So if Imam Ali married Ummul-Banin, and during those days, it was quite common immediately after marriage. There was pregnancy, and the lady would become, unless she was ill or something wrong with her. So Ummul-Banin was around 19 or 21 years of age when she got married to Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, and that was around 12 years after Shahadat of Hazrat Fatima Zahra salawatullah alayha. And if you look at although history does not give exact dates of wiladat or wafat of Umm al-Banin, but if you look at the children's birth and shahadat of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, and what ages were the sons of Umm-al-Banin, we can come to conclusion that she may have been around 19 to 21 years of age. Hazrat Abbas was around 36 years of age, and he had a brother who was 25 or 6 years of age who became Shaheed, and 21 year of age, and another one maybe 19 years of age. So all of them became Shaheed before Hazrat Abbas, and Abbas was the one of the last ones who became Shaheed. So in total, all sons of Umm-al-Banin were killed in the plains of Karbala. And the reason she's known as Umm-al-Banin, she didn't have any daughter, and and Banin means sons. So she is known as Umm-al-Banin, and one of the reasons she is known as Umm-al-Banin was the agreement between Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, and Umm-al-Banin herself, that not to call her Fatima in front
Sure.
of kids.
I'm going to come back to one of the points that you just made, that she has no daughters, later on in the program. But for now, you have raised two important points. First of all, when it came to her selection, and to when the Imam wanted to marry, he went to the expert. And that,
Yeah.
I think, is the message that you have given, that when somebody, and when today sons and daughters are going to look into spouse selection, it's important to go to the experts and to look for the right qualities right from the start. And also, you have given a very interesting analysis of the historical account of her marriage, and what number wife she was, because she became a stepmother, Sister Tashi. So, what were the qualities when her proposal came to her father? How did her family, for a start, treat the proposal? And how did they get the agreement of their daughter? Because that, again, is a message that we have in today's time and age, that when proposals come, how should families deal with those proposals?
Yes, Mr. Zainab. I agree with the first point that you made about spouse selection. This is a big message that Imam Ali, even though he had the knowledge, he used somebody to suggest a family for his future wife, and it gives us the criteria we should be looking for when we are going ahead for our children, our own spouse selection, which is like he looked for some qualities in them, like valor, like courage, like things, and magnanimities and iman. So these are the things which we also are given a hint to us. Like, first of all, when you go for spouse selection, you have to look at the iman of the person, as well as the family nobility. Nobility doesn't mean the status, the financial status, or the social status of the family. It means about the values and virtues which that family has. So these are the things. So the second point that you're pointing at, as what you asked, you're discussing, is about history of the proposal. So as I was mentioning that when Hazrat Aqeel went over there, so obviously Hizam, the father of Bibi Fatima, Hazrat Fatima at that time, he was very excited. But then he said, okay, I need to discuss with my wife, who was Samana, who was known as, and my daughter, because Samana was also from a very illustrious family. Her father, Sohail, he was a very courageous and a very brave man. He was known for his bravery in Arabia. As a matter of fact, the brave people in Arabia used to write his name on their swords and their arrows and things, that before Khaybar, when Imam Ali's name was written after that. So she also was from a good family, and they had given good education, good upbringing to the daughter, because Fatima Ibn Hazam al-Kalbiya, she was also a poetess. Later on, we'll come to know how she used her prowess in poetry and literature. So she was given education. She was given some kind of this kind of a knowledge, marifat. So they came when the father came. He saw that his daughter was lying down in on her mother's lap, and the mother was combing her hair, and she was saying, I saw a dream. So she mentioned that she saw a dream in which she had gone to a garden, and the garden was very beautiful, and she was admiring the stars in the sky and the moon in the sky, and then the moon came down into her lap, and then four stars came down into her lap, and she was wondering what was the meaning of this dream, and of this dream. And her mother mentioned to her that this dream means that you will marry into a very illustrious household, and you will get very virtuous, illustrious, bright star children. And so this, when the father heard this, when her father Hazam, he was very excited, because he said, this is the tabir of your dream has come true, because I have got a proposal from a very from the best family which is possible. And so this is how they all agreed to this. So as you can see, there's a discussion in the family, the women are involved, and this is the respect and value. So like Maulana just now mentioned, that her name was also Fatima, we can see there's a similarity in their qualities also. In Bibi Fatima's family, there was respect for women. Her father Rasulullah respected his daughter, which was very very different from what was happening in Arabia. Her consent was taken for the marriage. She was educated, she was literate, and similarly we can see similar qualities in this second Fatima as well. And then later on we'll see her isar, her sacrifice, all those qualities. There are quite a few similar qualities, although at a different level, of course. So this is how the proposal happened, and then the marriage took on. So you want to discuss the marriage, or will that happen later on?
Thank you. I'll bring the Syed here. Syed, of course, now her lineage was looked into, and as Sister Tashi mentioned, she came from a very cultured family with with traits of nobility, and but all of this specific looking for this lady with from a tribe with so many good traits and morality and manners was for a specific purpose, wasn't it? The Imam was preparing for something. Could you shed a bit more light on that, please?
Yes, I mean, if we go back to the question you asked in the first question, that Imam Ali knew everything, so why did he seek advice of Aqeel? And so, if we believe that he knew everything, he also knew that what will be the role of the children of Ummul-Banin. And so he was looking for a supporter for a big uh, event that would take place in future for his son Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And there are narrations that when Hazrat Abbas was born, he was kissing his arms and crying, and kissing his arm and crying. And when people asked why he was doing that, he said, well, these are the arms who would be sacrificed for the sake of protection of my son Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And Ummul-Banin was not ma'asuma, but her awareness of Ahlul-Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam and her loyalty to Ahlul-Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam was obvious by her behavior with the children of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, and how she respected all of them and took care of them. Even regarding Shahadat of Hazrat Abbas, there is a narration that Bibi Zainab Salatullah alayha when she came back after being released from the prison. She came back to Medina. She went to the house of Ummul-Banin and gave condolences to her about the shahadat of her four sons. And she uh, instead asked about Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, what happened to Imam Hussain. So he was
Syed,
more.
we're going to come to this point. Sorry to cut you off there. I apologize. But you mentioned something here that I want you to elaborate a little bit more on. You mentioned that her mannerisms when she arrived into the house of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and how she treated his children from his first wife, the children of Lady Fatima Zahra. Please elaborate a little bit more on that, because what I have heard is that when she came to the house, the children were Imam Hassan and Hussain were ill at that time. And so, what was her behavior as the stepmother when she came into the house? Because again, this is a relationship that nowadays is quite shunned. Being a second wife or a third wife is something not that acceptable in society today. Yet we see a great example in this lady and how she took on this role. But when she came, what was her behavior to the children? You did mention about her behavior towards Lady Zainab Salamullah alaiha when she was remembering her mother, but also when she came to the house of Imam Ali and how she asked for her name to be changed. If you could elaborate a little bit more on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, in modern day, we usually say that counseling is done and psychotherapists are involved in tragedies and difficulties of the time. She, as second or third or fourth wife of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, or we should say stepmother of the children of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, she played an excellent role. She she was counseling all of them. I mean, there are narrations that she would constantly take care of them. She would constantly do things that would not hurt the children's feelings. She would constantly play a role that they would not feel absence of mother, and at the same time, she was very careful not to make them forget. Sometimes second wives, third wives come, or stepmothers come into the life of children whose mother have died. They immediately try to take over and replace them. And she was being very careful from all point of view. She wanted to be kind to them, but she didn't want to take their mother's place in their life. So she would remind them, or she would do things that would not hurt the children's feeling. And the children also respected her. According to narration, after the tragedy of Karbala, throughout the life when Ummul-Banin was alive, all the children of Bibi Fatima Zahra Salatullah alaiha had the regular habit of visiting Ummul-Banin at all celebrations and important events. And this is how they gave the respect. And this respect only comes back when you get the same respect from them. Otherwise,
Yeah.
if the father dies or mother dies and the children are grown up and adult, they usually don't bother about. But the children of Bibi Fatima Zahra Salawatullah alaiha, until the last day of their life and last day of her life, Bibi Ummul-Banin's life, they gave her the due respect of a mother, and they used to visit her. And this is especially narrated that at all important events, the children of Bibi Fatima Zahra were there in the house of Ummul-Banin, even though they were not living with her, and they were independent and had their own house and families.
That's an excellent point, Sayed, that you made, that this lady earned her respect in the house of her husband by giving respect herself, which is something we all have to aspire to and learn in today's society, because we find women often asking for respect. But if you give respect, you also earn respect, and that is something that we learn from her life. Sister Tashi, this lady had a very pure heart. She was very pious and a very high standard of faith. If you can tell us about how she raised her children as a mother, and with which standard did she bring up her children, and also the story of her motherhood when her firstborn Abbas alayhi salam was born. If you can tell us about the state of affairs at that time.
Yes. When she entered the household of Imam Ali salam, we are told that she came with a mission. So she came and she sat at the door and she said, "I will not enter the household until the children of Fatima accept me." And when they came, she said that, "Do you accept me as your khadima?" is the word she used. So that was a mission that she had come into the household of Ahlebait to serve the Ahlebait, and that takes a lot of courage, a lot of control on your own nerves, and like she was a young lady who was coming into a household, and there are desires that all women have these kind of feelings, but she controlled herself, and this is the kind of a feeling she put into her children also. So, like you mentioned, how did she bring up her children? So she instilled into them this feeling that you are not the brothers or sisters of the children of Bibi Fatima Zahra, but their slaves. They're. So it's like she used to tell Hazrat Abbas, don't look into the eyes. She used to tell, don't look into their eyes when you talk to them. Look down and give them a lot of respect. And they never, like Hazrat Abbas never called Imam Hussain as a brother. He used to call him his Aqa. And we are told that in Karbala, Imam Hussain in the end he said that, call me your brother. That is what they want. He loved to hear from him. So this is the kind of feeling she instilled in them. So if we break up into three major parts, so one would say that she gave into them marifat, about the status of the children of Bibi Fatima Zahra, about knowledge about their level, and then she instilled in them good manners, adab, that this is how you have to behave with humility, respect, and she instilled in them good characters, good morals, and bravery, which came not just genetically through her, through Imam Ali, and also through display of valor from on her part. So all these kind of feelings, when she instilled that resulted in a lot of loyalty, like we call that Hazrat Abbas as the epitome of loyalty, right? So these are the things. If you break up loyalty, it's broken up into marifat, into adab, and into shujaat. All these things are required for a person to be loyal, and these are the feelings she instilled into her children, so that they are loyal to the family of Adil Bayt. That was a mission. And she had full marifat on it, and this is how she raised her children. So that was the first question you asked. Can you remind me about the second part? Sorry.
Yes, no, thank you. You've answered the question, Sister Tashi. Syed, how was this upbringing that Sister Tashi just mentioned, and the loyalty that the lady instilled in her children, and the understanding of her mission, and also the recognition of the status of the masters, the children of Lady Zahra alayhi salam? How was all of this visible, and her upbringing visible in Karbala when it came to Hazrat Abbas and his obedience and his stance with the Imam of his time? How did her upbringing become so visible in Karbala?
Well, I mean, children show their upbringing if they are trained and brought up properly by both uh, parents. I mean, definitely Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam had a role to play there as well, but it's the mother who stays with the children at home. And as a stepmother, she could have easily created negativity in the minds of her children, and especially when we know that uh, she's not infallible and her kids are not infallible, and so she could have easily twist. I mean, and we know that imams had wives who poisoned their husbands. So she was not that type of a wife. She was understanding, and she brought up the children in a way that that famous incident that is narrated during Muharram each time, that once Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, while he was a child, or he asked for water, and Hazrat Abbas went and got the water. By the time he got the water in a bowl, Imam Hussain was sleeping. He didn't want to disturb Imam Hussain, and he was standing. And as a child, he was shaking, and the water was spilling on him. And that scene made Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam cry and weep. That look, this child, how much he respects his brother. And as sister was mentioning, he Hazrat Abbas used to call Imam Hussain as Aqa. And in the plains of Karbala as well, uh, he gathered all his three brothers and he said, "You go forward and stand in front of Imam Hussain." And he didn't say, "Imam Hussain, your brother." He said, he said, "Go and stand in front of Hussain, your Aqa. I mean,
Your
your
master.
master, your Amir, and defend your Amir until your last breath." And this is exactly what they did. They were just like a, what do you call, protect. The three brothers were always like a protection shield in front of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, and all three of them uh, died while protecting Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, and they looked at him as their master and Aqa and Amir, and not just a brother.
That's an excellent point, because following on from that, Sister Tashi, I also remember the incidents of Hazrat Abbas in the Battle of Siffin with his brother Muhammad the Hanafiya, when Imam Ali used to send them out for the combat battles, and when inquiries were made as to why you are being sent and not Hassan and Hussein are not being sent to the battle, he replied that Hassan and Hussein are the children of the Messenger of Allah, and I am the protector, and I am the hands of my father. So it's the hands' job to protect the eyes. And this was the loyalty instilled and the bravery instilled by both parents in this child, and the level of recognition, as you mentioned earlier. But if you also could shed more light as to how the upbringing of Lady Ummul-Banin was visible on the day of Ashura in Karbala, especially when the entire lifetime of Hazrat Abbas, from his birth, and in fact before his birth, as Lady Fatima had mentioned him and had foretold and left a will for this son, and greetings for this child before even he was born. But on the day of Ashura, when he was not allowed to combat and he was not allowed to fight with the enemy as a combatant, as a warrior, um, what were the values that became so visible of Lady Ummul-Banin on the day of Ashura through her son Abbas alayhi salam?
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and I think that is the peak of Hazrat Abbas's itaat, right? So when Bibi Umul Banin, she instilled the feeling of loyalty in her children. So one main aspect of that is shujaat, like you said. Shujaat is not just in the battlefield, right? It's not just fighting the enemy with the battlefield. It's also fighting with your nafs. And Hazrat Abbas had seen his mother, from the time he was born, that she never did anything according to her nafs. She did everything according to the duty, according to the status of Ahlebait, how she was serving the children of Bibi Fatima to Zahra Salamullah alaiha. So he also had that feeling in him, and that at that point when Imam Hussain alayhi salam asked him to put down his sword, that was the toughest decision for Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. He was born, he was taught always that you are born for Karbala, and you will go and you will fight and you will defend Imam Hussain and you will protect him. And then Imam Hussain is telling him, put down your sword and you cannot fight the war, you have to go get water. At that time, he did not question his imam. He did not object. He did not, as much as raise an eyebrow. Immediate, obedience. So this itaat, this adab, all these qualities which Bibi Ummul Banin had instilled in her children, that obedience of the imam. So this is that ayat of the Quran that atiyu Allah wa atiyu Rasul wa atiyu ulul amr minkum. So that means this is like she had taught that you obey Allah through obeying amr, which is equivalent to obeying your Rasul, and which is equivalent to obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this marifat, the level is amazing. How he fought with his own nafs. His desire was to go win the battle, but he fought with it. He obeyed Imam Hussain in Islam and he went ahead. So these are all, if you deconstruct loyalty, this all comes into that. This marifat of the status of Imam Hussain in Islam, this adab of itaat of them, and this shujaat of fighting with your own nafs. So these all things, they lead to it, and this was, I guess, the epitome of his bravery. It was easier for him to fight a battle. Yeah, like
Yes.
this.
I think that's a very important point you raised there, and something really to think about is that the epitome of bravery comes actually in obedience, not in being aggressive or hasty or doing what you feel like, but actually bravery is in obedience, and that shows when you're able to control your nafs and yourself, that shows how brave you are in reality. Sayyid, the lady was a herself was a fighter against oppression. And you earlier were mentioning her stance after Karbala, when the holy household returned back, when Lady Zainab and Imam Zainul Abidin came back to Medina. What was her behavior in standing against the oppression that befell the holy household, whom she was absolutely loyal to? And what example does she show us about fighting oppression and being against oppressors?
Yeah, before I answer that question, one of the questions that people raise is that why she was not in Karbala.
Yes.
I mean, this is a question which comes in the mind of people, and the only reason that they mention that is, out of all of her sons, only Hazrat Abbas was married, and he had a child, and maybe she was left behind to look after the child of Hazrat Abbas. And when the tragedy of Karbala took place, she was not only brave lady, she was also known as adiba and philosopher or educated lady, beside Bibi Zainab Salatullah alayha, who is known as Alima ghayr muallima. She has also that kind of title, that she was extremely knowledgeable, and she witnessed the descension of wahi to to Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, and the stories that Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam used to narrate to her. She was the direct witness to all of that, and she learned a lot from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, and she passed on this knowledge to her children, uh, Abbas and three brothers of Abbas, and she trained them in that manner that they felt to be proud of serving Ahlebait alayhi salatu wasalam. She knew and understood the status of Ahlebait alayhi salatu wasalam, not because it was a norm or it was a tradition to respect certain families. No, she had digested and understood the status of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam, and she sincerely used to consider herself at service of them, and being at service of them was her pride, and that was obvious by the training she had given to her children.
Thank you, Sayed. So, Sister Tashi, hers was a life of servitude, of obedience, of loyalty to the Holy Household and to the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam. But if you could also shed a bit more light on her insight, wisdom, and her eloquence, as the Sayyid mentioned, because she was an adiba, she was an eloquent lady, a very well educated lady, and a very well brought up lady. If you can shed a bit more light on her eloquence, especially after the event of Karbala, and how she fought oppression through this eloquence and through her mannerism. And unfortunately, we are approaching the end of the program, but I would like you to answer this question in full, and then I will take concluding remarks from both the honorable guests.
Okay, yes, this aspect of her life is another very important, because even though we think that raising children was the main thing that she did, but after the tragedy of Karbala, she is the one actually who laid the foundation for Majlis. We are told in narrations that Rasulullah had given some some soil of Karbala to Bibi Salma and said on 10th of Muharram this will turn red. So when that turned red, that the ladies in the household, they came to know that Imam Hussain had been martyred. So Bibi Ummul-Banin at that time, she organized a majlis. She gathered the women in her house, and they actually laid. That was the first majlis, we are told in narrations, that was held, and she mourned the martyrdom of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. But this was just the beginning. She used to go to Baqi. This is again similarity between Bibi Fatima Zahra salamullah alaiha and Bibi Ummul-Banin. They would have a public display of mourning as a mark of protest against the oppressive regimes. So like Bibi Fatima Zahra, she would go out into the and she would and mourn for her father Rasulullah. Same way Bibi Ummul-Banin would go to Baqi, even though there was no grave over there at that time. Imam Hussain was not here, and then she would go there. I mean, there were other graves, but the martyrs of Karbala were not buried there. But she would go there, sit there. She would narrate through her poetry. She would take, and then she would, she was so expressive. Her poetry that people would weep profusely. Even we are told that Marwan bin Hakam, who was an enemy of Ahlebait, he when he was passing by and he heard the words of Ummul-Banin, he started weeping. And so this was how powerful her words were. She actually inspired. She exposed people to what was going on around. This was not just in Karbala. After Karbala, we know that in 62 AH. Yazid attacked Medina. There was the incident of Harra, and when he kind of desecrated the Masjid al-Naqvi and he did all those things. Then in 63 AH, there was the incident of Makkah when he attacked. So all this while, Bibi Ummul-Banin would go out. She would have a public display of mourning. She would raise awareness against oppressive regimes. So this is how she did this, by her poetry, by the power of her words, and by a public mourning. I think this is what we inherited from her. In our majalis, when we use poetry as a power of stirring emotions, people uprising them against oppression, and also, like, when we go out in public, when we take out processions, this is also a kind of a thing we inherited from her. I believe that she set this kind of a thing for us, a precedence for us, by using her power of poetry and by her mourning.
Thank you for explaining that really well, Sister Tashi. I'd like the concluding remarks from both of you, but what I would like also to for you to address is what today we can learn from this lady and her children in regards to our responsibilities towards the Imam of our time. She recognized her responsibilities towards the leader, the divine leadership appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in her time. How can we learn and what can we do in our lives to imitate her and to walk on the footsteps that she had showed us?
To me or sister?
Syed, I'd start with you.
Okay. Uh, well, the other aspect we haven't touched regarding Ummul-Banin is her karamat, her noble, her personality. I mean, Bibi Ummul-Banin is known as a lady who solves the problem of people even now. I mean, it is quite common in Middle East and Shia Muslim world that especially ladies, when they get in trouble and going through a difficult time of their life, the first thing they go and do another for Banin. And it has been practiced and tested that when you make a nazar Ummul Banin, your dua is accepted very quickly. Of course, uh, if an atheist who does not believe in anything and who makes mockery of Ahlebait and swears that, and he makes nazar, of course, his nazar will not be accepted. But it depends on the sincerity. So if you sincerely, if you are going through trouble and difficulties in your life, all you have to do, and this is I've personally practiced and experienced, that all you have to do, make a promise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you would recite 110 times salawat on behalf of Ummul-Banin for Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. And then leave it in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever you prayed and asked for would be fulfilled. And many times it has been experienced and tested for. So, Bibi Ummul-Banin is one of the ladies who, although was not ma'asuma, but is sahib karamat. She had many karamat, and her karamat are ongoing still now in our present day and life. her nazars are very famous and acceptable. And what else you could say? I mean, if you go to Middle East, people believe in insurance of Hazrat Abul Fazl al Abbas more than any other insurance company. So, if you ask them uh, why you're not protecting yourself, I'm under protection of Abul Fazl al Abbas and Ummul-Banin.
Thank you so much for raising that point, Syed, because me and Sister Tashi had discussed that we will mention this point and it completely escaped my mind, of course. So I'm very grateful that you brought this up. And it's not a surprise, Sister Tashi, isn't it? This lady sacrificed everything she had
Yeah.
in the way of God and in the way of supporting the divine leadership appointed by God. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also has rewarded her. If you could also elaborate on the points that Sayyid was making regarding the karamat of this lady and the honor that's been given to her by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in helping other human beings.
Yes, sure. That's an excellent point. Bibi Ummul-Banin is also known as Babul Hawaij, which is a title usually given to very few people, the Aima, the Masumin alayhi salam, and also like Hazrat Abbas and Hazrat Ali Asghar, and a few people like Bibi Sakina. So those people who sacrificed everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we look at our Aima and the Masumin alayhi salam, they are infallible. But when we look at Bibi Ummul-Banin, she is like Maulana mentioned, she is not an infallible. Even then, her status is so high that she is a means for us to get our duas accepted. So that is such a big inspiration for people like us, that we can also raise our marifat, our level of faith, our level of itaat of our imam to that level, that we can reach where we can become a source of of blessings for other people. So when, like we all mentioned, it has been mentioned that her qualities, her excellence in her qualities and what she did, we know that there are many ulamas who swear by it, that Ayatullah Hui, he says, he and his teacher Al-Muhaqqaq al-Isfahani, I was reading that they used to they used to read Namaz Shab, Salatul Layl, and they used to give the sawab to Ummul-Banin, and they felt that this really helped them to answer their prayers. So there are many ways. There are the things of the amal of 10 Surah Yasin, which are read over 4 Thursdays, 3 Surah Yasin on 3 Thursdays, and the 10th one on the 4th Thursday. There are many means, so you can even read a Surah Fatiha and give the sawab to Ummul-Banin on the behalf of Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, they say, and ask for your duas. So this doesn't come as a surprise to us. Like you mentioned, looking at her stature, looking at the sacrifices she made for the sake of Ahlebait alayhi salam. So if when you bow down your head in front of the Ahlebait, Allah raises your stature. Like Hazrat Abbas, she trained her children to bow down their head in front of the Imam. Allah raised the status of Imam Hazrat Abbas, that everybody now goes to his, go to him for the acceptance of the duas. And the other point that you were mentioning, just quickly, if we have 1 minute, like what can we do? What can we learn from her life in raising in our families? So, for example, we have discussed a lot of points, but I think main thing which we are missing in our life is like we educate our children, but we don't give them good manners. Adab, which we say in our language. We are not teaching them good manners. We are not teaching them obedience. We are not teaching them this kind of good characteristics, good khulq or something. So this is very important. We as Shias of Ahlebait alayhim Islam, we have a different lifestyle. We have to accept that we are not like everybody else. Where nowadays, being rude and insolent is considered to be very, fashionable. You're not you don't show respect to your elders because that's the way it is nowadays. But we are different. We have to teach our children to become to have that respect in them, and that starts with the family. When you have respect for your elders, for your parents, then you'll have respect for the imam, you'll have respect for Rasul, and you will obey the imam when the zuhur happens. If you don't teach them from house these small things, it's not going to happen. So I think this is what we learn from her, the kind of values she put in her children: obedience, respect, and the marifat of the status of independent Islam. And like we mentioned, Shujat is not just bravery in the field; it's fighting your own nafs in our homes every day. The choices that we make in our lives, we have to do that.
Thank you, Sister Tashi. Sayyid, there's such a true point that the sister raised, is that today we don't lack education, but we lack tarbiyah, we lack teaching manners to our children. With this, I would like you to make your concluding remark about today's topic, please.
Yes, I mean, we may be living in a very advanced period of life, and very uh, education is available through all different sources and medias, but there are people in the world who would still not recognize and do not have the ma'rifah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam, and go astray. I mean, I've seen this happening to even in Maraja Taqleed's grandchildren or children going astray from Islam. If you don't have ma'rifah, even if you have knowledge, as Quran describes some of the Jews, that they are very knowledgeable, but they are like donkeys carrying books on their back. So ma'rifah is extremely important. If you don't have ma'rifah, you will not respect Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. You will not follow their path. You will not learn lessons from them. If you have ma'rifah, even if you are not knowledgeable, you would become highly. I mean, you will have a very high standard in view of Allah subhanahu wa taala. So let's pray to have ma'rifah.
meaning recognition of the Ahl
Yeah.
al-Bayt and of God. And that's an important point that you raised there, Syed. Sister, is what the Syed also mentioned, for carrying on from your point, is that we have to, this lady can be emulated because she's not one of the infallibles. She is a normal lady like us, and it's easy for us to emulate her and to learn from her lessons and practice what she has taught. If you could give your concluding remark regarding today's topic as well, please, Sister Tashi. I think we have reached the end of the program.
Yes.
So, Sister Tashi, if you could just conclude very briefly, we have half a minute left.
Okay, just very briefly, that we need to first be the role model for our children. We have to practice what we preach. So if we want our children to be on the right path like Ummul-Banin, we have to actually have marifat ourselves, have good behavior ourselves, have obedience of the ahkam of Islam ourselves. When we do that and we don't have nifaq in the difference between what we say and what we preach, then our children will also follow in the right path, inshallah. And this is what Ummul-Banin did. She showed the path for her children, and that's how they turned out the way they were. Inshallah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to both the honorable guests for joining us tonight. Thank you, dear viewers, for listening. I will see you, inshallah, next week, same day, same time. Until then,